what I found really interesting is to see this different camps in a way, or reactions coming up in us humans, individually and collectively, where people either like get on guard. Now there is a threat in my neighborhood. This could be dangerous, so we need to arm ourselves, be aware, be ready for war, and just be very on alert. Or maybe be ready actually to strike, to take somebody out, to do something that would kind of like remove the element that's dangerous. And we're still talking about human beings here. It's interesting. We get into this technical, tactical terms. It's interesting to feel that. As if that could be a surgical strike, and then you take out that human being or that element, and then the thing would calm down. Or the other voice that says like, okay, now this is dangerous. Now, like I heard a lot of people like starting to talk about how to prepare now, especially in the West here in Western Europe, about dependency, about Russian gas and things like this. So what do I need to prepare? How do I need to prepare my home, that I'm safe for the next winter coming? What do I need to stock up? And so this kind of like preparation mode of protection and making sure I'm safe, which again is just a very base and well-known survival impulse that comes up, and as well as the one that says we need to do something. So it's either the fight or the more flight and protection mechanism that's activated. And we both, and like kind of like let the thing be, let him move, don't engage too much in the conflict. This would get too dangerous, but kind of like a bit more like being a bit more on the fence and wait. And I think the geopolitical forces are all a bit like moving also between these poles. And so what really came to me and what I'm really curious about, and what I also explored with some people, is for politicians, for nations, but for a normal citizen right now, like me or you, or anybody listening, what is maybe something new that we don't know yet? Because if we believe in the evolution of life or consciousness, if we don't want to just repeat what we already knew or what we already know, just with new figures and with new scenarios, but basically the script that is writing, that is kind of like creating the scenarios is same. It's thousands of years old. Violence, how do you relate to violence? Do you become violent yourself? What trade-offs are you willing to take? So the movement between fighting or waiting. And I'm really curious to see, because in a way then we know how history will unfold. We already know, and we don't know the details, but it's kind of like this is not new at all. And I'm curious, what is it that we can be called to, or even call in from ourselves, that we don't know yet? And I think this is a very, very powerful, but very subtle movement. And it's also very demanding and scary, because it enters the territory of, I don't have an immediate answer. Maybe you do have, but and it's a bit like there's these two heavyweights in the ring that are enforced by thousands and maybe millennia of years of human evolution that come out of our protection mechanism and our survival instincts. So they're always ready. If danger comes up, they're like, I'm in the ring. I know how I have this. I handle this. This is the way I do it. So they are loud voices that will scream, and they're screaming in the world right now and in a lot of people. The first thing is already to recognize that within yourself is already a very powerful move, because normally most of humanity lived these energies without being aware that this is running their lives, because we rationalize and have very good arguments for what we then do. So to take a step back and notice, this is this is kicking in, and again, I'm not talking about when you're being attacked right now in being living in Ukraine, but if you're in a relatively safe distance to the situation, but feeling it affects you. And so there is these heavyweights in the ring, but what is it that could come into the ring or into your scenario that you don't know, that is a kind of a different response to the situation, not just a reaction that we already know, but what is an authentic answer to this situation right now? And I think that's the only hope we have in a way, because otherwise we will repeat what we already know, maybe with some different spin because it's a different century, but not a fundamental shift. It's like in a relationship where you feel like you just, or in your life, you're just repeating things, the situations change, but it's not really a real transformation of the outcome. And we all probably also know all the moments when suddenly someone, you're in a fight, suddenly someone responds different. It takes you out of that script. And I think this is super powerful for oneself, but also for the larger sphere. If you don't act as, because strategy, and there's a lot of strategy involved, is running on the idea that I know how you or somebody else will respond and react. And kind of disrupting that is very powerful, because then I need a moment to think, to orient, to respond, to see, to breathe, to like, it's not going according to plan, and like he will do this or this or this or this, and I have an answer to all these situations already. And so I've also with some people I've been exploring that, and then somebody said, for example, I had this very like a small, subtle, quiet voice coming up in me. Maybe I should call a circle of people together and just do a sharing about how this is affecting us. But then immediately the voice came, yeah, but what's the use of that? Like, will that change anything in any way? And so suddenly the heavyweights are like, what are you doing here in the room? You have nothing to you're not contributing anything. And I would like to really be like inviting this in myself and in everybody and in all of us to listen to the voices that are a bit more quiet, because these voices of change, they're not screaming voices normally. They're more quiet, but they're very powerful because something else can birth from that moment. And that's why it's so important to listen to authentic impulses that I have in this moment, and not thinking what my impulse will do for the world. Will this have an effect on the situation? You don't know. And you actually, we cannot know. And I think that's so important, that we often kill impulses by the expected outcome, what that will do or not do. The world, like as if there's a linear thread from what I do, this will A will affect B, and then C, and then will lead to D, which is what I want or not want. And to kind of let that be in the realm or in the hands of God or the unknown or the divine orchestration or the mystery of life, how you want to call it, because we don't know. But to respect the responsibility we have to listen in ourselves to places that have an authentic feel and movement to it, and then trust or don't trust, but just be with it, that this will, like, if this is authentic, it is the right response, irrespective of what I see, where it leads to, or what it does or doesn't do, because I will not know. But if I learn to listen to a more real, authentic voice and impulse in myself that is not coming from just survival mechanism, but my care for life, my my willingness to take a stand can come from many different principles, to then trust that this is what life, God, however you want to call it, calls me to bring forth. And that it has a part in the larger orchestration that we cannot comprehend. Because how life unfolds, we cannot comprehend. And anytime we think we know, we're reducing it to something that we already had experienced before, but we don't know really.